Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Sam for another spoiler discussion for The Last of Us. This time we are talking about Season 2, Episode 6, titled The Price. I almost misread that as The Prince, not Prince Oberyn Martell. That's a different Pedro Pascal HBO series. But Sam, how are we doing today?
Good. It feels very weird to have had a bit of a break from Cinema Savvy and then have two appearances back to back, Sunday and Monday. But no, very good. Starting to feel better after my recent illness, which is the main thing.
Yeah, you're right. A Sunday, Monday double bill live. We were live at half it yesterday. We're talking Rogue One, following on from the Andor finale. So we're just going to plug that as an intro. That was a fun discussion. Me, you, and Phil were on that. We are here talking back with The Last of Us. It is the penultimate episode of season 2. There is one more episode. Seven episodes in season 2. Season 3 is officially greenlit. There is talk that it's going to be filming next year, which still feels very far away. So we're probably in one of our final discussions for maybe 2 years, which is, I don't want to say wild. It's one of my biggest criticisms of the industry at the moment. Maybe that will segue into a Doctor Who conversation, a series which has had 2 seasons in 2 years, like the good old days of TV and how TV should be. But we are going to be talking everything, and this episode is going to be full of spoilers. So people watching at home, please do comment your thoughts on The Last of Us. Please do not do game spoilers for past where we are in the series. That's always a play sort of way we have. We've both played that second game. You're way more up to date than me. I've got it ready to play after the series is finished. I want to play it basically literally next week. So I'm going to be getting back to that, which is going to be exciting. And then we're going to be out of TV for a bit. We've had a lot of TV stuff. I mentioned Doctor Who. There probably will be some TV because that season's finishing. But everyone at home, as we said, comment your thoughts, subscribe if you're a fan of this video, if you're a fan of the channel. It's been very, very busy recently. We appreciate everyone's support with that, for everyone checking out our videos. If you want to find out about other videos, things we're working on when we're live, we put them on social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, all of which under linktree.com/cinemasavvy. But Sam, heading over to you. Let's get more of a deja vu moment. Your thoughts on last week's episode of The Last of Us, just like how we started Rogue One yesterday with Andor.
Yeah, I mean, really good as usual, isn't it? There was, a bit more intensity with the last episode. It was building. Obviously, the main highlight was kind of the ending for me with Nora. It's a really big moment in the game. And, it directly leads to one of the flashbacks that we get in this episode. So it's kind of really good that they kind of followed that in terms of this horrifying moment for Ellie in episode 5 to then go to episode 6 and kind of have these moments with Joel and stuff and see how and why the relationship shifted as it did. But yeah, really enjoyed the last episode. I was just trying to take a look at it just to see if there was anything really big that I'd missed about it. But no, I think it was just good to kind of see Dina do more as well. Because I think I don't think she's in day 2. Really, is she? Is it that moment where she stays at the theater? I'm not too sure.
I think it's the one when she stays back at the theater.
Yeah,
because it's one of the days when
you
do a lot more as Ellie, and at that point, and then you're with Jesse, and
so it was good that it wasn't just Ellie. I'm glad that Dina was able to actually take part in it as well, see the stalkers, and of course Jesse come in and letting us know that Tommy's about to. So yeah, but the end of the last episode was fully preparing us for some flashbacks in this one. So yeah, I wasn't really prepared for some of them, but yeah.
This one, if we kickstart this one, another cold open. I actually put up as a short the other day, and people seem to like it, which caught me off guard. I have always raved about the cold opens from like day 1, season 1. The opening scene is obviously the talk show, and it's it's given for a series that's been incredibly faithful as an adaptation to have these cold opens where they're able to explore a bit more of the backstory on characters, on environments, on how this disease came to be with the infected. I was not expecting Joel's dad to really kickstart it, and immediately I knew this was going to be Joel and Tommy. It's not like a celebratory thing. So I called it, but I was like, oh, a cold open, and then you realize it's like, oh, okay, well, this is before Outbreak Day. There's the Joel. There's Tommy, abusive father, and I've got to say, as someone that hasn't seen Better Call Saul, Tony Dalton being cast in this. People will recognize him from his fantastic mustache. He was in Hawkeye, Daredevil as well. He's been in so many things. He's very much having not a Pedro Pascal moment, but he's starting to come off the limelight as he's in his sort of mid to late 40s, which is great for an actor as well. To have, I don't even want to say an origin of Joel, I don't need that, but to find out about his father figure, which has impacted the way Joel is going to be a father himself, taking the blame for something Tommy has done, defending his brother, knowing he's got an abusive dad, he'll wear that, he'll take the hit. And obviously we know this is an abusive father who hasn't done right by his sons, who is emotional at the conversation with his oldest son about, him lying about it just so he isn't, he'd rather get beat up than the other brother. To then get an even more tragic backstory that he was a victim of his own dad's domestic abuse that left him in a worst ever state. It's this like terrible Miller family tree. And I thought it was fascinating, and I didn't put not 2 and 2 together, but when you get to the final scene and Joel is having the conversation with his daughter about his violent nature, as George Lucas would say, it's like poetry. It rhymes. But yeah, Sam, your thoughts on the opening? Because there was, even though it was a short scene, and I wouldn't say it's as well written as some of the others, but it was just this bit of extra lore, I guess you could call it, at this point in time.
Yeah, it was just a nice surprise. I mean, you don't expect. I mean, I come into these episodes not really trying to predict what's going to happen or what's going to appear, because so many things can change. But the fact that we got just a little bit about Tommy and Joel, in their past, their childhood, it's all they do the flashbacks and kind of going back to pre-outbreak really well. And to kind of just see that dynamic between the brothers, Joel has always protected Tommy, and I think there's always those like inklings of, oh, Tommy gets into more trouble than Joel, and Joel has to clean it up. Like there's like elements of that that's been brought up before in the video games, especially as well. So it's nice to kind of see that, but know that they're there for each other and there's a lot of love. And it's interesting to see Joel's dad. He's a cop. For a lot of people that speaks 1,000 words anyway, especially someone from that time as well. But it's interesting to have this father have a open, honest conversation to a point with his son. Giving him a beer, sure, that's the manly thing to do. This is when we have a serious talk. We drink whilst we talk. And talking about his, abusive childhood, which is obviously terrible, but it is just showcasing that a lot of things, it's, how you're nurtured. And, we can see that this guy is, at least not super abrasive, immediately abusive or anything like that. It's clearly showing that he's wanting to be better than he is. But there's just stuff that clearly he's not going to change so much. But it makes you fearful about what Joel's grandfather was like, because it does sound like he was a really nasty piece of work. So I think it's in isolation, a nice bit of backstory for this family, but it really adds to the story and what we're going to get in this episode, because we already know that Joel is, as a as a father or a surrogate father is really loving and really wants to be there for his kids. So it's interesting how the rest of the episode goes and where that leads Joel and Ellie.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting one that when I sort of sat there after the episode finished, I was thinking about it. It isn't just a comparison of the dad that, oh yeah, he was abusive, but it's quite impulsive. How he speaks about how the granddad, just punched him in the jaw, fractured his jaw. That was it. And clearly through how he came into the house, where's Tommy? I know it's Tommy. It's that Joel like aggressive nature. But once he has the patience to sit down and actually think a little bit, the real, not character, but the real emotions come out of him, that this physical, tough face is hiding in front of a very emotional individual. And I think this season has done that so well with Joel. In 3 episodes in its entirety, if I'm being completely honest, the way Pedro Pascal is able to bring in such incredible performance throughout, but to have that reflected with his dad and see what has passed down in tendencies and actions, I think it's a really inspired bit of writing. I don't know if it was Neil Druckmann. I know he directed this episode as well. I don't know if it was Craig Mazin, but as you said, it's sort of added to it so much more. And it really kickstarts the episode of flashbacks. You get the usual title credit sequence, which is great. And we have a returning Pedro Pascal. It wasn't just him saying hello last week and just disappearing like a Force ghost. We do get the flashback episode. Ironically, the penultimate episode of season 1? No, it was episode 7 of season 1. We had the flashback with Riley, and then we had episodes 8 and 9 with the cannibals and the finale. But the placement of it in the story is an interesting one. We might talk about it at the end. I know we've got to be really careful with game spoilers, but let's go back to 5 years. And I sort of love this. Ellie and Joel's, I don't say first birthday because that sounds really strange, but Ellie's first birthday with Joel as the father, we get the character Seth crops up again, who this is terrible because we know he's homophobic. He was also an ex-policeman too, we found out today. And even he's been developed in all these episodes since that New Year's Eve scene. It's not me defending his actions at all, but I want to say, like, whether it be a redemption or whether it be a development of the character, but the fact he's so thrilled with finding Lego is incredible. There is an apocalypse, and Lego has survived the apocalypse and is like a currency in demand. I thought that was amazing. And it kind of makes sense. Like, it would if you found that, and he wants it for his grandkids. And I loved spending time with characters in the flashbacks that are not just Joel and Ellie. And I think that goes a long way with this one. But the innocence of that first birthday, him making the guitar for her was so sweet. The Hagrid-esque cake, and even Bella Ramsey, the performance in the flashbacks is really interesting because Ellie's obviously, there's been 2-3 years between filming season 1 and season 2, and one of the criticisms I've seen on Ellie this year is Bella Ramsey looks too young to play her 5 years later, even though she's actually older than what Ellie's meant to be in this, and she was obviously a lot older than Ellie was doing season 1. They're able to transform themselves into that character in these the important teenage years that everyone goes through, whether it be hair and makeup or the costume department that's really assisted in that. It felt like seeing Ellie going from a 15-year-old to a 19-year-old. And I wondered what your thoughts on that to really kickstart that flashback.
Yeah, because I know, like, we started with Ellie burning her arm. Obviously, it's, she says, she wants to wear, she doesn't want to wear long sleeve t-shirts. She wants to just have her arms out, which is totally fair. But obviously the bite's there. Obviously it'll lead into the tattoo that she gets a little bit later on, but you really see, especially after the last episode, you really see the difference in Bella's performance and just how Ellie at this time, the one from season 1 and that's developing right now, is still, I'm not going to say innocent, it's not the right word, but there is that child essence that's still there. And, Ellie really wants to, get out, go on patrol and, do these things. And, Joel's basically trying to tell her not to rush it. But, you still see her excitement and just, contrasting that compared to the darkness that she's been in these last few episodes, and especially at the end of last episode. There's a reason why the flashback was not the same in the game with the introduction of it anyway, but is why they put side by side. Like, we need to see how, the elements of how these characters got to this point. But I loved it. I loved to see the different interactions between the characters at that time and the supporting characters. So yeah, and I do think seeing Seth more is weird, but I think it just goes to show that there's a lot of different facets of people, and as much as I don't agree with Seth's actions in definitely in some cases, it allows me to be more tolerant of the character, and I and that's fine. There's much worse people and characters in this universe than bloody Seth, but it's interesting to see how they are at this time and how that changes later on.
Tolerance the right word to use on him, because he is somebody that that's the better word, because it's a really tricky thing to talk about that, because it's redemption is the wrong word, but I think it's the gravitas to show that they can. Bill and Frank was 1 hour screen time and developed two characters into like an immortal piece of Last of Us like literature. That's a really weird way to say it, and that was in 1 hour. That was writing for these two characters via flashbacks. So they show they're capable of developing anyone if they want to basically put their mind to it. And I think Seth fits in that it makes it feel more community driven. The whole Jackson, that he's not just getting random people to these things. There is this core, different people, different there. And where it sort of goes with these flashbacks. So, I mean, obviously the museum one's the huge one, right? That when that popped up in the trailer, everyone knew, oh my God, we're going to get this season. How much of it we're going to get? I've been trying to find it on Twitter, but I can't. I saw it earlier and I knew we were getting the flashback. I'm still scrolling now because I've got it open, but they didn't just do the T-Rex at the front. They didn't just do the rocket ship. They built the dinosaur skeleton set, and it has been cut from the final episode, the final cut of the episode. It looked incredible. It's all props. It's all set design. It looked amazing. And it's great that whilst we are spending time in Seattle in the main story, that not like all the money still there as a budget, but just getting Joel and Ellie back together again is something we all miss in the sense they're characters. Some people don't like the decision to kill Joel off. I still like it as an idea, and I think it works for the story and what that second game is and what the second series has been so far. But just the execution of today's episode in these scenes, the getting the Walkman out with the tape and listening to it, and even the visuals switching on the screen, I just thought it was such a sweet episode. And I say episode, I guess because a segment, sorry for what year it is, but even how it ends with Ellie looking to the left, and I was just sat there like, I appreciate they're going to make some changes. I won't be doing a whole in the game, but I was half expecting to be like, oh, are we going to get the hospital from season 1 in the background, or are we going to get the graves that we saw Abby doing at the start of season 1? Sorry, episode 1. I was like, what's she looking at? And the fact they're real fireflies, I fucking loved it, because it's such a small moment which really gives gravitas to what that organization had on her, the unanswered questions, the thoughts she has on Joel. It was such a brilliant way not just to put the flashbacks in, but to move the flashbacks towards, hey, we're not just ironing out a backstory for the sake of it. We're pushing all the characters forward and we have to get to where we were. I don't know if you've got much thought on that little moment or the rocket scene as well. Sorry, I should have said.
No, I mean, the gutting thing about this segment is that it's so short. I mean, I love that entire section in the game is just such a breath of fresh air after the intensity of the chase and death scene of Nora. And seeing Ellie and Joel together and just actually managing to explore and to speak to one another. That's the moment where we learn Ellie can swim. I think in that as well. And yeah, just having a look around a bit more, like that's a really important part of the game. So I mean, as going as it is for me that you don't get more of it, it kept the main elements, Ellie's excitement, being the main thing, and Joel's kind of pride, and his own enjoyment and happiness of seeing Ellie enjoying herself for her 16th birthday. I'm so glad that the rocket scene was pretty much, the same as the game. It's such an important and really lovely moment for Ellie and Joel. And to see that brought to live action was just so exciting. And it really makes you see in Bella's performance just how happy Ellie is. And you can see with Pedro's performance how happy he is that, he did good. Which makes the scene where Ellie is looking at the fireflies just that bit more jarring because they're both hiding. Like, he's hiding what he's done and she's hiding her doubts about the whole thing. She's not 100%, but she definitely knows that she's not been told the whole truth. And I think a lot of people can probably resonate with that idea of someone that you love and who cares about you as well, not telling you the whole truth because they want to protect you. And not only that, they don't want it to damage the relationship. So, but by hiding it, it's just making the relationship more fractured. And as we see as we go through these years, it does lead to a breaking point. So as nice as this whole thing has been, it's sort of the last time that they're truly like good with each other.
Yeah.
So it's a real shame.
Yeah, and it's a sharp contrast to the next one. So we get the 2 years before birthday, which I love this because I could be completely wrong. In season 1 of The Last of Us, when they get to Jackson, there is that girl like staring at Ellie. And I can't remember if I said it to you, but I was like, that's meant to be like Dina. Like they're teasing, bringing in Dina now. I could be wrong. The person Ellie is with in the bedroom who's giving her the tattoo looks exactly like the actress. I could be wrong still. That did that little role in season 1. And that was my brain being switched on. Like, yeah, like they worked around casting Dina, but not casting Dina by having this person and Ellie having had a thing all this time. And this seems one of the powerful ones. You've got, Joel finding out obviously I keep saying it's his daughter. Obviously it's not his daughter, but it kind of is his daughter. And as you said, the birthday before was the last time they were good because there's tension in this. And his reaction about finding out about her, the animosity, what I was saying earlier with the dad, how he has these emotional outbursts, reactionary approach, which isn't right. And that's, not the first time Joel's not been right about a great many things. And how we see in this segment, without jumping too far ahead, is even him cooling down, gets to the evening, he has a think, and he sides with her. And we see over time that he's absolutely fine with her being a lesbian, which is great as well. Obviously, we get the porch scene, which we'll talk about in way more detail. But I really liked this one in particular. But not only do we start to get the origins for tattoos, but it is that 17 years old. They're hitting that age now, and he didn't get to go through that with Sarah. So he's going through all of this for the first time as a father. And is it right in me saying this is also where we're introduced to Catherine O'Hara's character in canon for the first time, which I was sat there thinking, oh my God, we're going to get Eugene. Like, we're going to, because to bring in Catherine O'Hara in the first episode, well, in season 2, as a new character with a new backstory, who had that great scene in the first episode, which had some of Pedro Pascal's best acting. setting them up for what we know has already happened, that we know is going to happen. You don't need to put two and two together, but you can work out, okay, these two are good with each other at this point in time. What were your thoughts on? It's really weird talking this episode because it's like flashback, we talk a scene and then we move on, and it's a weird one to talk because there's so much happening, and it felt like it was maybe 45 to 50 minutes as well. It didn't feel like the longest episode, but it had the most emotion for me of the series so far, obviously aside from the death.
Yeah, and it feels this segment in particular felt really kind of because I totally get Ellie's perspective, and there's the nightmare scenario of a parent basically being like, what the hell, especially when it's to do with your sexuality. So I felt so much for Ellie in that moment, and it is one of those things where you've just got to understand that, you know, it is the fact that Joel is flawed, and most of the characters in this show, and you know, especially at least anyway, are flawed in one way or another. And the thing is with Joel is that, you know, he's not prepared, you know, in for some things. You know, he was a father, wasn't a father for a long time, and then now basically for him gets this second chance quite late on as well. I say quite late on, but I mean, you know, he met Ellie when she was 14, 15. So it's so I can understand like the difficulty for him to start losing her so quickly, especially on top of the fact that he's not told her his biggest secret, really. So you can understand where all this kind of anger and frustration comes out for both of them. But I do feel for Ellie in that. But at the same time, I love that, you know, you see with the 16th birthday cake and how it's developed in the 17th birthday cake, it's all written correctly. It's in chocolate, which is more difficult for Seth. He said vanilla was easier. So it's nice to see that Joel is really trying and doing it, but then there's just parts of him that just, you know, come out, and it leads to a really unhealthy you know, moment between him and Ellie. So I mean, it's good that he gives her space after that, but it's really showing the cracks in this foundation now, and that there's more is going to happen. And then, yeah, with Gail, I honestly didn't even think about Eugene. I was so kind of wrapped up that I didn't even think, oh, yeah, Eugene's going to appear. I was more just happy to see Catherine O'Hara again. I was like, don't know how many times she's going to appear in the series, but I was just happy to see her, understand that she's still the same, really, as she was. It's not like the death of Eugene changed how she saw things. She's still very blunt, to the point. Her time is her time, but still giving Joel something anyway. So that whole thing was just really interesting, and to get the origin of the tattoo, the garage. You know, we're seeing these pieces come together, and it's only going to get more intense.
I love the little garage setup as well, that she just wants to move in the middle of the night, and he's not shutting it down being a ridiculous parent. He's shutting it down like, we'll do it the next few days. Like, we will do it.
We'll do it in the right way.
Yeah, and I like that. And it is those tough conversations that parents can have. It's a really good point we said as well about him coming into these sorts of things later on in his life, where it's already a difficult age. You know, he is. Am I right in saying he is like in his like early to mid 50s during The Last of Us Part 1, and he'll be like 60, 61 for Part 2. I think that's what I've seen. So
I think, yeah, because I think he would have been born in the early 70s, I want to say, or something like that, which means if this is like 2029 when he's killed, then yeah, he's probably in his late 50s, early 60s.
And I quite like what it's doing, and even Ellie's comments, and the harsh things like, you don't own this house, you own nothing.
Oh,
even that resonated, because it's true. Like, not like they're refugees in the concept of that, but it's the whole outbreak. He had a home before, he had a daughter before, he had his own place, he had his own car, he had work. Whereas now it is a community-driven thing. Okay, he doesn't own it, but it is his house, and she knows she's running insane. And I like where their relationship really starts to go. And when we get to the 1 year one, this is when it really goes through with the. Okay, I don't think her relationship with Joel is bad at the 1 year. I think they've repaired it from the birthday before to the moment they wake up on the following one. He takes her out on patrol, and I love that little joke, by the way, that when she turns 16, she's like, "I want to go on patrol," and she gets to do it 3 years later on her 19th birthday. I loved that. That's just very funny. And Jesse being brought up, which is a sign that they're still developing these characters who have been with them a while. The 1 year one gets me because it feels like their relationship. Obviously, we know she opens with her not believing him. She's got the speech, she's got the questions she wants to ask, and it all comes earlier. So there is already a tenseness there. The fact he wakes her up early, he comes in early as well. For what they do with the patrol, the moment we get the call of someone's in danger, I just didn't click it was going to be Eugene, even though we haven't seen him at this point. And for where it goes with, I can never pronounce his name, Joe Pantoliano, who most people will know from The Matrix, is in Memento as well, a great character actor. And by the way, the Matrix poster is in his bedroom in this series. So it's wild that someone from The Matrix is actually in the show. It's a bit like, this is a really minor thing. In the new Mission Impossible, it's not a spoiler. They're in a house that has VHSs because it's analog. And you can see in the background a Minority Report of VHS, which means that Tom Cruise Minority Report exists in Tom Cruise Mission Impossible. That's obviously just a bit of fun from a set designer, not anything mega. But I like these little things. And when we've heard about Eugene, the opening episode, "You killed my husband," and I'm staring. I have to talk to the guy that did it. And at the time, from memory, we had a chat, and I was quite empathetic. Like, he probably killed him because he had to kill him. And it's just shit that she sat down with the guy who did that.
Yeah.
Where this episode chooses to take that scene is fucking incredible, heartbreaking. All he wants to do is see his wife for the final time. And I understand that. And I understand the decision from Joel. I can't let you do that. And did he say he knows it's against the rules as well? Like, that's clearly, in the T&Cs.
Yeah, I think so.
But bringing in Ellie, who, she obviously doesn't want to be the only. She spoke in the morning saying, are there more immune people there? Her basically trying to find out, could this guy be immune? Or are we going to kill him that quickly? Setting up this idea that we could take that. I just sat there wondering, how are they going to play this? Are they going to have him turn? Is Ellie going to kill him? And they're going to put it on Joel? Like, how are they going to run this? And the moment he tells her to go and get the horses, and she knows at that point he's probably going to do what I think he's going to do. But to walk him out to the beautiful open lake, to have that discussion about seeing his wife last time, for them intentionally not to use the sound effect of the gun going off when we can see the birds. I know that's what I mean, downplaying the Joe performance, which I thought was great in the sort of 2 scenes we get him, that he is frightened. All he wants to see his wife last time, and I understand that. And I think, not that we've been in that scenario with being affected, but it's really interesting to spend time with somebody who has been bitten, that already has a pre-existing life, and it's going to now lose it. And Joel just killing him in cold blood, lying to him about the wife, a terrible person, which the show does like to not remind us, but it's very much obviously this is what this guy is capable of, and we'll keep showing you him doing these terrible things. Your thoughts?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's really tricky because I can understand Joel. I understand his reasoning for doing it. You never know what's going to happen. Anything could happen between finding Eugene and bringing him back. It might be more difficult for him to, be killed if he sees his wife and if she sees him. So it's awful because you get, Ellie going out on patrol, which is a really nice thing. She's wanted it. She finally gets to do it. You hear Eugene's name as one of the two people who need help to get a really great and realistic reaction from Eugene on, it's kind of that bit of desperation. I'm not going to be killed, with a gun that doesn't have any bullets left. And then for me, it was that moment where I didn't realize until Joel was like, "Oh yeah, head right" or whatever, and I was like, "Oh my god, he's leading him." And there's like a Walking Dead scene that I just thought of, which this doesn't play out exactly like that, but I mean, it gives very look at the flowers for people in the know, but it's that thing of making that person feel comfortable. But with Eugene, he realizes what's about to happen, and the fact that he's still able to think of Gale and still have a moment of, I can't really say relaxation, but a moment of calm before this happens with this like beautiful lake view in front of him. It's in some ways sweet, but also just so tragic. And I think that's, something that this show really does well, is just this like simultaneous beauty and
horror.
Horror. Yeah, exactly. And it's it just shows you what Joel can do. We've seen it anyway, but the fact that he's doing this to someone who clearly he and Ellie both know. He knows Gale. We've just seen, him speak to her in a couple of scenes before. It's really shit. And then for it to go and him to just lie to Gale's face, which is not the right thing to do. For her, I get it. And a lot of people, in real life in certain situations have done that, where it's like, oh, you want to make them feel better. It's like, oh, they were really brave, all of this. We've seen that in shows, films, and everything else before. But Ellie's reaction to it, because you get it. You totally understand why. She's hearing this, basically getting proof of something, because she's got so much suspicion. And I think that's perfectly understandable for her to have the reaction that she does, because it's not like it's come from nowhere. She's been sitting on something, been totally unsure, thinking, am I right? Am I wrong? She doesn't want to ruin the relationship, clearly. But now it's not, she can see something in front of her and she's not going to be silent about it. That's not who Ellie is. So as awful as it is to have Gale hear it, I understand why she would smack Joel, why she would want him away. And you can understand, right, okay, this is... Ellie doesn't need to go to Salt Lake City and see. She knows this already. And by Joel just lying so blatantly, she realized he could lie about a great many things, including what he told her, which she was already so suspicious of. So... I do like that change that we managed to not only get a bit of Eugene and see more Catherine O'Hara as Gale, but we get that coming out without needing to travel back to Salt Lake City and having this kind of like intense one-on-one between Joel and Ellie. And I think that really helps with the porch scene at the end. But yeah, it was mad enough. I just felt so bad for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Apart from Joel, really, at that moment.
Even with the death scene, right, with Eugene, 99.9% of people that would have been bit by and affected would probably have happily, please take me to the lake and give me that like beautiful final shot. And I think that's what makes it worse, is that he doesn't want that. He wants his wife. He wants to see his wife, to say farewell, to hear from her. Not him to pass a message on, for him to hear from her is what really stung. And for Joel to be so merciless with that, and as you said, it breaks Ellie, and it is I'm glad you said it. You don't need Salt Lake. You don't need it, because if you were to have a go with it, everyone's going to be like, well, how did she get time to just dip back over there? Like, personally, I don't think that works logistically for what the series has been. I'm not going to say the game, but for the series has done, it didn't work. But for Eugene's death to be the moment Ellie went from being uncertain about believing Joel to, I am convinced, past conviction, I'm upset, tears in her eyes, and she's not even using Gale for bait. Like 99% of people as well would also tell Gale what happened. He was strong, he wasn't afraid, he wanted to do it himself, and he didn't want to turn in front of you. And you know that, again, if it wasn't for any reason, Ellie would have gone along with that. If it wasn't for the fact she had doubts about Joel, if he hadn't swore, she would have probably gone along with it fine for her first patrol as well. And Gale's reaction is just unbelievable, and it's such a gravitas brought to the role. And by bringing in, like we spoke about with even Seth earlier, you bring on these small supporting roles who have got a couple of minutes of screen time, if that, and you could argue probably shouldn't have more screen time, and they add so much more complexity to the show. But her reaction, slapping him walking away, I'd love to go back to that first episode now and watch that scene again. Because now we know the context of him killing him wasn't just, I had to kill him because he was bitten. It was, he could have come back. We said to him, we'd take him back. We said we'd let you see him to say bye, and I didn't. And I took that from you. And I think that's so powerful. And it really does go back to that, Joel is not a good person. And I say that a lot, but that is, one of the key concepts of Last of Us is about humanity, particularly in season 2. It is about that lack of empathy, the lack of care, the selfishness of characters. And even Ellie herself, she was right to say what she said to Gale, but it was still incredibly selfish to say that when she did, to one-up Joel in front of somebody. And it's such a great performance by Bella Ramsey as well, the tears in the eyes, Pedro's reaction to it, Tommy's sort of there, like, fuck. Like, the reaction to that was Ellie would have probably got a bollocking, as would have Joel. And they're both in the wrong for what they've done on that patrol. But it just adds. And it all does lead up to New Year's Eve, where Joel gets his conversation with Tommy's wife. I've forgotten her name. We get the Seth moment. Maria, thank you. Another, the Seth moment again with a different point of view of Joel. But the porch, broke me. I've seen a lot of emotional TV this week, particularly Andor. This scene, I didn't know it was going to happen today. I woke up, I went on Instagram, Pedro Pascal tweeted loads of photos. I'm like, okay, he can get away because he's Pedro Pascal, but I wish he hadn't. Do I want to just jump in and say, is this Pedro Pascal's Emmy nomination locked in? Is this a potentially Emmy award? Maybe not. I don't know. He's the lead actor. They've classified him as lead actor for the awards, but he's only in 3 episodes and a final second of one. This scene is what makes Last of Us work as a series. If this scene doesn't work, the second season can't function. The second game can't work. The third season can't function. It was all dependent on this. I haven't seen the behind the scenes. I haven't listened to the podcast yet, but for Neil Druckmann, who's only his second ever episode he's directed on TV, to essentially revisit one of the most important moments from a game he co-directed, what I have read is he basically didn't get involved. He didn't go back to the game. He let both actors perform that scene, the performances, the way they wanted to do it, what they felt like was best for Joel, what was best for Ellie. And you could hear a pin drop, the attention on them between that. Joel knowing this is the checkmate now. He knows at this point, I am going to lose Ellie now. I have to. And if you go back to different context of episode 1, this is following his talk with the therapist when they're all telling him, you got to say, you got to tell her whatever you've done, whatever you're telling yourself, you need to be honest. And the reason it hits like a ton of bricks is because, I don't think I can ever forgive you, but I would like to try. And just Pedro Pascal's reaction to that, and us knowing the audience that is, again, she's not forgiving him, and she's correct not to forgive him for what he did, for him, taking the life, and just the way he delivers, I'm sorry, and I'd do it again. It's sinister, and it's scary, and it's perfect because you go back to the opening scene. it's how a father probably the conversation online for the last 5 years has been anyone in Joel's position would have done that, which is correct. It doesn't make him a hero. It makes him make that correct choice for his daughter. Whether it's wrong for the scale of the world, it is everyone would probably do that. They're selfish decisions just that. And they would do it again. Even if it's haunted him, it's kept her alive, it's meant that she could maybe have her own family. I don't think obviously it's selfish to Joel to an extent, but it's so layered, and it's the fact it is revisiting that opening scene with him and his dad, and he is now having the parental chat with his daughter, which would go on to be his last ever conversation with her, which kind of makes it the more heartbreaking that she was ready to give him that episode. And you go back to episode 2, when she wakes up, she wants to go on patrol with Joel. And it's what sets the revenge tour in full sequences. She was robbed of the opportunity to forgive him. Oh, it's fucking good, isn't it? How did people not like this in that second game? I don't know.
I think it's the fact that, it's not... I think Ellie recognizes that it's not just her who's been robbed, it's him. He's also been robbed of the opportunity to make it work with her. Like, they've both missed out and lost. I was unsure about having the porch scene at this time because it comes a lot later in the game.
Yeah.
But within the context of this season and this type of episode, it does make sense, although it does make me think, when will we see Joel again? Will we see Joel again? But yeah, the performances in this were just absolutely insane. And I just think Pedro not being able to even, Joel not being able to speak, and you just see his face and he's just tears, nodding, shaking his head. That he's, after having spoken with Gail, these now years where this build-up has happened and the relationship has become so fractured and difficult that there's literally nothing else he can do, and he's already lost so much that he can't bear the idea of losing her. At the same time, how he's been is not allowing them to have a healthy relationship. So he just cannot keep that up anymore. So I feel for Ellie still, because you've not only been essentially 99% sure of something, but now you're just getting that final confirmation from the person. I think there's potentially a little bit of a slip up by having Ellie get this confirmation at this time, rather than earlier, so she can really have that anger. But with the way that the show's done it, she knows anyway, and you can see that at the end of the first game. Like, you can see that Ellie is not 100% sure that what Joel is saying is true, but she goes along with it. They both go along with the lie, but she's just not willing to accept that after time. But yeah, they were both absolutely fantastic, and it's just such a tragic story. And the people who were not a fan of the second game or of this storyline, if The Last of Us was just one game, if it was a one and done, absolutely fine. But it's like, where else are you going to take this, and how can you do it? Yeah. They've got to where they need to be, and Joel is the person who's kind of the one who's led us here and is the one who's created all this damage. So it's important that repercussions do happen, as awful as it is, because we really love Joel. We know he's flawed. We know he's not a good person, but we still want him to succeed and be happy. So it's a really awful position to be in, and it's just sad for the characters that they don't get that opportunity. And to then cut back to Ellie in the rain in Seattle, it just makes it more abundantly clear for the audience why Ellie is doing what she's doing. If it wasn't known before, this is it, that their relationship was a difficult one, but they both really loved each other and they were both very willing to make it work. And they don't even get an option to do that. So yeah, it's a really, I almost cried. I almost cried watching them.
I didn't cry as such, not like bloody last week with you know what at the end of that show, but this was just it's the writing, it's the performances. It's not even lifting it from the game. I don't care for that in the sense of how I emote. I think I said before, I don't really emote to games, not in a rude way. I'm not saying you can't. There's been amazing games I've sort of emoted with, but there's something about it when it's TV, when it's live, when it's real, when it's humans, when it's acting, when it's these set designs, these gorgeous bloody show like this. It's just unbelievable. You go back to the rocket scene, and it's what a powerful 1 hour. And I think if you were binging, because one of my criticisms of it's not criticism season one, unfortunately, it's not unfortunately, but when I re-binged season one just for season two, the Riley flashback didn't work as well for me. Even though originally I binged it all in one sitting in one day, on a revisit, the Riley one took me out a little bit. As important as that scene is, it's more of the juxtaposition with Ellie now looking after Joel, making sure she doesn't lose someone. Whereas this one, it's the emotional drama to this is what happened between the seasons. This is what has put these two into this way, which has shaped their relationship and why it's more painful she's lost him. And I think that just adds so much more to the series and to Ellie's revenge. Like if it had all been hunky-dory and Joel had been killed, she'd probably be going after them, but I don't think it'd be this like twisted level of anger. I think because the robbing feels, and it obviously all colludes with Abby and what we know what Joel stole from her, and Joel on the porch basically being like, I accept the consequence of what's going to happen or what could happen. Yeah. And I like that because we already know what's happened to him, and he knows that moment has been waiting. And even when you go back to his death scene, he was waiting for it. It's more the fact that Abby wanted it to be slow. It's just an incredible episode, and credit to everybody involved. I think it's very ballsy to put this as the second last episode of a season in a shorter season already, 7 episodes. Yeah. But I do think, dependent on what happens next week with the finale, this might end up being one of the most genius things, the structure. And I will say the show hasn't been afraid to make changes to the games when need be. I think most of the time it's worked out for the better. It's worked better in the concept of this is for people watching a series in a 7-episode cycle versus people sat down to play a 20 to 30 hour game. I think that's such a big thing people forget adaptations. But yeah, oh man, my final thoughts on this episode, one of the strongest of season 2, maybe the second best episode after episode 2 of season 2.
Yeah, this is definitely up there. This definitely feels like not the anti-Bill and Frank episode, but it definitely feels like they're like different sides at the same point. Yeah, it's like we're going through a montage of a relationship, and we see a relationship build up and a relationship break down, and it's I think a really beautiful story is what it does, and it just really highlighting the human element and just the basic principles of protecting someone, hiding things when you think it's for the better. Those things come out. So as much as you think, okay, well, it is what it is, I've got a handle on it, and they don't know anything or they're none the wiser, they're right to have their own doubts. Ellie is right to have her doubts, and ultimately it stems from somewhere. What was it that I heard a few weeks ago? It's like if it looks like a duck, talks like a duck, acts like a duck, it's probably a duck, So with Ellie, she's got enough proof to warrant her outburst and her reaction. I think it's completely fair. So I think it's interesting that a 19-year-old has gone through so much as well. And this is what I think it's easy to forget, is how much Ellie has gone through, and the fact that now she's in such a perspective and point of view that she just cannot see anything else apart from this revenge. And it's kind of doing this thing, be better. Was Joel's father doing better? Was Joel doing better? Is Ellie going to be better or get worse? And that's the question.
And it adds a little bit to last week with the whole "I'm going to be a father" thing. Like, she knows that Dean is pregnant, and because some people didn't like that comment. I really enjoyed that comment. I prefer that reaction to actually her not being angry, if I'm totally honest. I know there'll be another juxtaposition at some point in the future. Probably going to be series 3 for that one. But yeah, it leaves us one episode away from the season 2 finale. Sam, do you have anything more to add on episode 6 before we start to round out?
No, I just think it was lovely to see Pedro again, to have some great interactions between him and Ellie. Joel is a fantastic character, and it's just nice to actually get those moments. It's great that they managed to adapt some of the really key flashbacks from the video game into the show, recontextualize some things, and really make it its own for the show. And yeah, the guest cast were fantastic as they usually are. And yeah, I'm just similarly to Andor, shocked by how fast this has gone, and I can't believe it's the last one.
I know, one more. Well, everybody at home, that is going to do it for this week's episode of The Last of Us. So we will be live doing this finale. When we have details of what we're going to be doing, we'll put them on our social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. That'll put you through to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. We're on all of those social media sites. The finale is next Monday at 2 p.m. here in the UK. And if you are based in the UK, it's bank holiday next Monday. So there is a call there that if you guys, like us, we have to get through work first normally. It's a blessing. So I'm very excited to see what happens. If you play the game, you might know what happens. They might change things around because they've been doing that a lot too. So it's a really exciting one. So we will be live with the finale. If you're watching this later on, please do again comment your thoughts, particularly this episode, things you liked, things you didn't like, anything you felt the game was missing. We mentioned those dinosaurs. The game was missing. The series was missing. So yeah, please do get involved. It's been a very busy time on the channel. We've wrapped the Andor videos. Today's the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. We went live a few weeks ago for a 20th anniversary celebration with the re-release. We have done a special on Rogue One yesterday, revisiting it post-Andor, joined by Sam and Phil. We have our Andor spoiler discussions, which is a lovely little playlist, all on the channel homepage now. We've got the Last of Us discussion if you want to find out older videos, but a lot of people catching up to last week's, which really surprised me over the weekend. But I loved last week's episode too. So we're going to keep doing these. There's new releases. We've got Mission Impossible out in cinemas this Wednesday. As spoiler-free review is up on the channel now. We'll be going live this Saturday night for a very heavy spoiler discussion on that one. Doctor Who is airing, which means we need to do a review at some point. Not me. Not in a rude way. I just don't watch it. Tate will be running that, and I'm very intrigued to see who he gets on as a panel for that. Sam is just sat there thinking, it's like I'm a sub. He's like, it could be you.
It might be you.
But yeah, there's a lot of things happening. It's summer blockbuster season. We announced a big series at the end of the year. We're doing a Pixar retrospective. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be in November. A lot of things to fill out between now and then. So that is going to be me rounding out. Sam, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you all on the next one. Take care.